We are live, ladies and gentlemen. It is Shades here, sitting in my chair. I'm looking at AITX, Cybl, and Ilus today. We're going to make the comparison. Now that Cybl has risen from the dead, we finally have the opportunity to look at the performance of the three over the past couple of years. And you will be shocked to find out where I put Ilus, in my rankings. I'm telling you right now, it's gonna be shocking. You'll be surprised because I used to like Ilus a lot. I used to think Ilus was the bomb. I thought Ilus was the big one, the big cheese. But now with Cybl rising back from the dead, I believe that has changed. And if we switch over, let's just start with the numbers, right? Let's go straight to the balance sheet. Let's start with AITX. When it comes to the balance sheet, I would put AITX at number 3. That's where I would rank it. Ilus would be probably, let's see, let's compare. I'm pretty sure I put it at number 2. So this is Ilus with total assets of 65.40 million and total liabilities of 34.79 million. And then you look at Cybl, you got assets of 33.72 million and liabilities of 47.48. But I think if we go to the quarterly, that has changed. It is no longer it no longer has more liabilities than assets. So if we look at Q2 2024, because of the huge increase in revenues, they now have more assets than liabilities. So that's like a positive net change. It's no longer like AITX over here. AITX, you look at I put it at number 3 for a reason, right? Look at the total liabilities to assets. Absolutely horrendous. This is why they have to dilute like 300 million shares on average every month, by the way. What Ilus dilutes in a couple of years, AITX dilutes it in a month. So let that sink in. Despite that, it can still run 100%, 500%. We've already seen that several times. So that's why I double down on that one, because I know that despite the dilution, the fact that it communicates, has product out there, it goes out there and it promotes itself, it's going to run because it communicates. It drops PRs, unlike Ilus, which I'm not going to touch on just yet. But just looking at the numbers here, you look at the liabilities, and what is that? Look at their assets. Their assets they're staying in the 7 million range, and their liabilities, they just keep increasing. 41 million, 43 million, 47 million, 53 million. I think if we switch to the annually, nothing's changed. It's still horrible. You have way, way, way too much. Their net working capital must be so negative. It must be like 24 million or something, if I recall. But yeah, 47.8 million in total liabilities, 7.6 million in assets. So this is like the worst one when it comes to the balance sheet. The best one, in my opinion, so far, just looking at both of these, I would say Ilus for now has the better assets to liability. Yeah, better assets to liabilities ratio. Although, like I said, because of Cybl's huge increase in revenues, you can see when you go to the quarterly, we should be seeing more assets than liabilities moving forward, in my opinion. Okay, so there you go. Ilus at number 1, Cybl at number 2, and AITX at number 3 when it comes to assets to liabilities. Let's go to the income statement. That's what really matters. Those revenues, net income, all that. So we go to the income statement. I don't even know where they're going to rank, in my opinion. I'm kind of curious. Let's see. Let's go to the annual. I think the annual is more important to start with. You look at the annual total revenue for AITX. It has been increasing, absolutely, year over year, from 260K in 2019 to 3 million in 2023. At least that's what it's showing here. Let's go to the total revenue for Cybl. Ooh, Cybl. Look at Cybl. 2019, 0. 2020, 0. 8.11 million in 2021. 5 million in 2022. And then 2023, 20.46 million in total revenue. So already way more than 10 times as much as AITX, at least for 2023, just to be clear, because that's the data we're looking at here for the annual. And I believe Ilus is sitting at 6.59 million, which was a decrease from the previous year of 12.74 million. So far, just if I had to rank these based off of just that revenue number and the fact that some of them have revenues that are increasing, like AITX and Cybl, I would say Cybl right now ranks at number one, with AITX right behind it when it comes to revenues, and uh, Ilus here. They got a lot of problems here with communicating. Number two, they don't follow through on things, and number three, 2021 there was a rise in revenue from 2021 to 2022, but then it dropped like 50%. So let's switch to the quarterly and see if maybe there's a better picture here for each one. But for right now, it looks like it's Cybl, followed by AITX, and then Ilus at number three when it comes to total revenue. Let's see, 2023. No, let's switch to the quarterly. Quarterly 1.18. Well, that hasn't been updated, but 52 million. Sheesh, yeah, Cybil's number one right now. Because when you switch to the quarterlies and you look at Q1 2024 and Q2 2024 for Ilus, you only have 4.19 million and 4.25 million. Oh my god, I need to make a video on Ilus. Holy crap. You guys seeing what I'm seeing here on Ilus? Holy sh. Look at this. Look at quarter 3 2022. 20 million. Next quarter, 35 million, 19 million, 23 million, 24 million, and then a huge drop off in revenue Q1 2024 and Q2 2024. Huge drop off. So this is, oh boy, that is ugly. I feel sorry for Buffalo Fireside Jets because I took the loss on Ilus recently. In case you guys didn't know, I took the loss because it was a good trade opportunity. On the way down, you can still trade it and make money off of it. But I took the loss because I'm like, I don't like the fact that they're not communicating. I don't like the numbers that I'm seeing. I don't like that they made a video saying we're not going to communicate. And the fact that they just don't follow through on anything. They might be, George Sharp might end up being right about this one. Iris might actually end up being a scam. But yeah, that drop off in revenue in this year, whew, what is that? That's a whole video in and of itself. That is crazy. I feel sorry for Buffalo Fireside Jets. Did he not look at those numbers? That's an insane drop off in revenue. You would want to see an increase in revenue, like Cybl right here. Look at this. It dropped from 19 to 5, and then boom, 52. That's a huge increase. That's already more than probably AITX and Ilus combined for multiple quarters. And I'm sure there's more on the way. I would have to look through Cybl's previous earnings, to see what's coming. But that is Cybl is at number one right now when it comes to revenue. You look at AITX and it's kind of It's the word. It's kind of At least AITX has increasing revenues, and at least they communicate. And among other things, they have a transparent CEO. So I'm gonna have to put when it comes to revenue, I'm still gonna have to put AITX at number two when I'm considering the other things. Let's look at the cost of goods sold. The cost of goods sold is incredible, I believe. The cost of goods sold is kind of It's kind of the same for all of them. Yeah, you know what? I'm not too concerned with the cost of goods sold for either. None of their cost of goods sold aren't high enough for me to complain about anything. Yeah, no, they're all kind of the same in terms of. Well, AITX is probably the worst one. You look at the cost of goods sold. So they made 2.23 million in total revenue, and their cost of goods sold is 2 million. So that's kind of bad. That's kind of really bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't. It's gonna be hard to be profitable if you're selling hot dogs for $1, but it costs you $1. Not $1. It costs you 95 cents to get that hot dog out there to sell it. Like, it's just, you're only making 5 cents per dog, but you're not, once you include operating expenses, you get destroyed, obviously. So probably AITX the worst one here in terms of cost of goods sold. AITX kind of has some issues, as you can tell on the financial side of things. You're like, it kind of has some problems. I don't think we have to look at anything else. Operating expenses. Yeah, the operating expenses are high. Oh my God, the operating expenses for AITX are extraordinarily high relative to their revenues. Look at that, 14 million, 12 million, 13.66 million, and their revenues are only increasing by like a little bit relative to their operating expenses, jumping from 3 million here to 14 million. So you can see why, as we go through AITX's numbers, you can see why this one's kind of like the worst one on the numbers. Like, as a whole, when you look at the big picture, you're like, man, you look at the balance sheet and the income statement together, and you're like, wow, AITX is like the worst. And it also has the worst share structure. We'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, this one, AITX, it's funny. AITX probably the best stock to swing trade because it bottoms out at 002s, 003s. Right now. Let me show you the chart. It's in its quiet period. No one wants it, but then when it runs 500%, oh, now let's chase it. So right now is like the best time to buy. I'm already in with 20K. I'm waiting. It's just a game of patience at this point. So despite the fact that it has the worst numbers ever out of the three, it still can make you money. So let that sink in. Despite the heavy dilution, it can still make you bank. So I just want you to take that in and just appreciate the fact that even if a penny stock looks like absolute garbage on the numbers, it can still make you a lot of money. Okay, total revenues. What am I looking at? Cybl, cost of goods. So what's the operating expenses for Cybl? Yeah, see, you see the operating expenses for Cybl. They're Let's look at the quarterly, but they're not high. They're not like AITX operating expenses. Yeah, look at the operating expenses here. They now making okay, so that's funny. You see this? You guys see what I'm saying? Their operating expenses used to be higher than their total revenue, but as they began to grow, you'll notice, 20 million here in total revenue, 11 million in not gross profit, 7 million in operating expenses. Next quarter, 5.4 million in operating expenses, only 5.11 million in monies made. But the following quarter, which is what you like to see an increase in revenues, but also operating expenses being kept low. So 52.73 million in total revenue for Q2 2024. Operating expenses negative 1.22 million. That's actually really low. Let's look at the annual just to be sure I'm not crazy. Yeah, so overall, you look at Cybl and you're like, the operating expenses they're not in line with the total revenue, which is good. You don't want it to be one for one, is what I'm trying to say. So Cybl right now is looking great, honestly. Operating expenses for Ilus, no way. Oh man, ooh, the operating expenses for Ilus are they're like I said, you can't be having no hot dogs selling them for $1, but it costs you 95 cents to like the cost of goods sold can't be 95% of your of the sale. That's just not gonna work because once you include the operating expenses, it's just how are you ever gonna be profitable? Yeah, the more I look at Ilis's numbers, the more I'm like, man, this is looking like this is looking ugly. Like it's been underperforming. I mean, look at the huge drop. Look at their revenues and just look at that huge drop off in 2024. And I'm sure they'll make every excuse in the book, but these numbers don't lie. Yeah, their operating expenses just yeah, never mind. So if I had to rank right now, when you look at the big picture, that is Ilis, AITX, and Cybl's financials, I would have to put Cybl at number one. All because of that huge drop off here. Ilis just I don't know what's happening, but they don't communicate. Like I said, it could be a total scam as far as we're concerned. So I would have to put Cybl at number one, AITX. I would have to put AITX at number two because AITX at least has increasing revenues, whereas Ilis is doing the opposite. Like it's just it's going despite Islands having the better balance sheet, the fact that it has decreasing revenues or flat revenues. I mean, that's just I don't like that. Like, come on, let's be real. If your friend says, "Hey, invest in my business," look at the total revenues; it continues to go up. Or this other guy says, "Hey, invest in my business," the numbers have been going down quarter over quarter and year over year. I don't know, man. I'm in it to make money. I'm probably gonna stick with the one that that's got potential, especially with AATX being an AI stock. Okay, so that's it for the numbers. I can't believe it took that long. It's been a 15-minute video already. Sheesh. We haven't even gotten into the share structure. So we're going to compare the share structure here for Cybl, Ilus, and AITX. AITX obviously having the worst share structure as you can imagine with such high liabilities. Authorized shares of 15 billion. This is going to be updated. They recently increased it to 15 billion. So we're going to have an authorized share of 15 billion, outstanding shares of 12 billion. And despite the horrible share structure, it's still, like I said, it can still run 50%, 100%, 500%. When this thing gets volume, which it can because they communicate, again, a stock can be absolute garbage on the numbers. It can be garbage on the share structure. It may not be amazing low floater that can run 1,000%. But you know what's more important than all of that? It's communication. You want to see what happens when a company stops communicating? Let me just show you IDIS. I still haven't touched on this, but you want to see what happens when a stock just decides, hey, we're not going to communicate anymore? It does this. It just keeps falling and falling. It has yet to bottom out. It might bottom out here at 003s like AITX, but I have a feeling they're going to keep dropping. That's just a feeling because that's been the pattern for years now. Whereas AITX has finally bottomed out somewhere. Despite, like I said, despite AITX having the worst balance sheet ever and a worse share structure. So again, keep that in mind. Communication is king. So there you go. AITX, obviously number 3. It has the worst share structure. I believe ILIS has the best share structure here, so it's at number 1. If ILIS communicated and dropped some good PRs, it can move. It can move pennies. It can go. Like I promise you, it can go. Look at this here. Look at this from, what is this? Oh no, is that the daily chart? Yeah, this ran from 005 to 284. That's the kind of potential it has when it gets news. Here it just moved on a whim from 007 to 124. So I'm sure some people are still betting on it and buying down here, like Buffalo Fireside Chats, but there's better. Cybl, now that it's back, it's going to be superior to ILIS in many ways, in more than one way, let's be real. So the best share structure, though, is ILIS right now at 3.5 billion authorized and 2.3 billion in outstanding shares. And Cybl, of course, has 7 billion in authorized shares, outstanding shares of, let's just round it up, 6 billion. So AITX, dead bottom with such a horrible share structure. Cybl at number 2, and number 1 is ILIS. But it's funny, ILIS can really, like, it can move cents. I promise you, it can. But what did I just tell you? AITX has the worst numbers, the worst share structure, dilutes constantly. But what does it matter if it communicates consistently? That's the most important thing, is communication, is what I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to ingrain that in you. If you didn't know this, a stock could be absolute garbage. If there's communication, it can move. Okay. And a stock can be incredible, but if it doesn't communicate, well, guess what it's going to do? You want to know what happens when a stock doesn't communicate despite being incredible and having so much potential? Let me show you SoundHound, which has not communicated in months. You see what happens? It's just kind of going nowhere. Like, you see that? It's just kind of it's just going sideways, which is fine. If you believe it's going to get a pump in the future or beat on earnings, you can absolutely start buying and accumulating it. But what happens when a stock doesn't communicate? It goes nowhere. That's just how it is. And if it's a penny stock, they just continue to go down. So I'm just showing you, even a stock on a big board like SoundHound, who got an investment from Nvidia, causing it to run to $10. It eventually, retraced, of course. When there's no communication, it just goes nowhere. It's just going sideways. So I'm just showing you, this is just how it is. It's all about the communication, my friends. Okay, and finally, let's look at their website. Let's talk about communication. This is where I want to end it on. Communication. Why is this so important? I just told you why. I just showed you why. AITX could be the worst stock in the world, worst company. It could have horrible balance sheet, horrible everything. The communication is all that matters. The communication is, and this guy, the CEO, communicates all the time. All the time. They drop hundreds of PRs. Let me just show you that. AITX. Let's go to headlines. Okay, so let's look at this. Yesterday, 6 days ago, 7 days ago, 8 days ago, 13, 15, 16. They already dropped. Look at that. So in less than a month, they dropped already way more PRs than ILIS has. You think I'm kidding? Watch this. So when it comes to PRs and communication, AITX is number 1 for now. I think it'll continue to be number 1. The CEO makes a video literally every Saturday. That's going to be hard to beat. Even Cybl doesn't do that. The CEO of Cybl does communicate through video, but it's not often like that. He doesn't. Mark Schmidt doesn't communicate every single week, every 8 a.m. on the dot every Saturday. So I think AITX, when it comes to communication, is number 1. Like, it can't be beat on that one. Steve Reinhardt's, despite, trying to downplay dilution and all the flaws that he has, and despite all these numbers that I just showed you that are horrible, like, why would you want to invest in this? Guess what? The communication is top tier for OTC. That's why you see this constantly running. And this guy's always tweeting, always communicating. So uh, I would have to put, in terms of communication and PR strategy, AITX is number one for the time being until Cybl maybe shows us something else. But Ilus, as I was just saying, Ilus, it's going to be at the bottom, dead bottom. That's kind of sad. It's sad because Cybl had the CE designation. It was still communicating more than Ilus, at least this year. This year's just been horrible. But yeah, August 30th, July 23rd, June 28th. Like they communicate maybe once a month, it seems. May, like when it comes to communication, it's kind of like once in a while for Ilus. When it comes to PRs, you notice this right away. You'll notice it right away, right? 4 months ago, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, 5 months ago, 5 months ago, 7 months ago, 8, 9. In 1 year, they've dropped 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Nine PRs. In a year. In a year, by the way. 9 PRs. 9. Let that sink in for a second. Why do you think the share price of Ilus is doing what it's doing? Why do you think it just keeps going down? Because again, I just told you, communication is king. You can be the best stock in the world. If you're not communicating, you leave people in the dark. People don't know whether they should be getting excited or not. No one knows what's going on. And yeah, so there you go. I expect this to go to 002 and then 001 and then triple zeros if it continues to not communicate. Although Ilus defenders, of course, Ilus defenders will be like, "Oh no, he doesn't know what he's talking about. This is gonna go to the moon." Yeah, right. So Ilus, I would put it at number 3. Despite Cybl just getting out of CE, I would put Ilus at number 3. I would rank it at number 3 in terms of communication, in terms of PR strategy. Unless I don't know why their strategy is, hey, let's not talk to anyone and leave everyone in the dark. Let's just make all these statements that we're going to uplist this year and next year and blah, 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 and never follow through or push things back consistently, never communicate on time, etc., etc. So, like I said, communication is king. Doesn't matter how incredible you think your stock is. If there's no communication coming from that company, it doesn't mean anything. So, Ilus dead bottom despite CE designation with Cybl. So, Cybl, the moment it got the CE removed, they started communicating. That's what you want to see. They were still communicating despite having the CE designation. So, I could just keep scrolling here. But I remember, if you guys have been following Cybl for a long time, the CEO communicates consistently compared to Ilus. He communicates way more than Ilus. I just showed you. Despite being in CE, they communicate way more. So I would put Cybl at number 2. Because AITX is going to be hard to beat in terms of communication. No CEO is making a weekly video and constantly tweeting, constantly active in the community, in their Discord. They have a whole Discord where the CEO is literally in there. He will talk trash too, by the way. Like he will. It's going to be hard to beat AITX in terms of communication. But again, communication is king. And I think he would agree with that. He would say, like, yeah, he's right. Yeah, Shades may be an asshole, but but communication is king. So yeah, you can see he's in there. Steve AITX, he communicates. And that's huge. That's huge. Communication, AITX is king. So my final thoughts after showing you all this data, after showing you all the numbers, the share structure, going over communication and PR strategy, if I had to pick one to be a winner long term, it's not Ilus. It's not Ilus. They don't follow through. They talk and talk. They don't follow through. Their revenues have been going down, flat. The stock price hasn't bottomed out. Looks like it's going to continue to fall. That's mainly because they don't communicate. So Ilus is not the long-term winner here, in my opinion. So that leaves us with Cybl and AITX. Who do you think I'm going to pick? I think AITX has potential because it is an AI stock. I think it has a long way to go, but but it does suffer from horrible liabilities and horrible operating expenses, and they have to constantly dilute. Horrible share structure, which will only get worse, of course. And when they expand, I imagine they're just going to dilute even more. It's just going to get worse, in my opinion, for AITX. But their communication is top tier. It is. You can't take that away from AITX. So my number one pick for long term, the fact that the CEO of CYBL went straight to Ukraine and said, "Here is my product. What do you think?" Yeah, I might get blown up for being in Ukraine, but I need to put my product out there and let these guys know, like, hey, I have this. The Department of Defense, closed the door on me, but I decided to go straight into the war zone and present to you an opportunity that can, benefit both of us. And look where they are now. Look where they are now, getting contracts, selling a lot of product, huge revenues incoming as well. And that combined with the CEO of Cybl saying, "Hey, we're working on getting the CE removed," and guess what? They did it. They actually followed through. Unlike Ilus, which has been blah blah blah, not following through on anything. So I would have to say that Cybl, out of the three, Cybl is the one to go long on. If you had to go long on one of them, it's Cybl stock. Number two would be AITX, but I would wait until after the uplist. Cybl, though, I think that one, that's it. That's a good long term. But wait for the bottom, obviously. Don't just blindly throw money at it at 1 penny. Like, wait for it to bottom out, then start accumulating. That's my opinion. Cybl is also probably going to be the number one swing trade stock as well, because we abused the bottom back when it was bottomed out before the CE designation. Ilus is not a good swing trade. You can see the pattern there. It just keeps dumping. It has its runs, but it just keeps going lower and lower. There's no point in touching that one anymore. I'm done with that one. AITX, number two. When it comes to swing trades, I would put it at number two, because it's bottomed out, 002s, 003s. I even wrote here, no reverse split extension. So they're not going to reverse split until 2026. So it's a buy at 002s, 003s. It likes to run 5 times a year, has one big 500% run every year, and the sell targets are at 004, 006, 009. That information is there just for myself, so I can, because I keep track of a lot of stocks. And I sometimes I forget, like, what are my sell targets? What am I doing with this one? So AITX is number two in terms of a swing trade. I wouldn't want to hold it long term, though. Not with that horrible balance sheet, horrible revenues, and operating expenses. So Cybl is number one. That's really what this video comes down to. And that's sad. It's sad when you think about it, because it just got out of CE, and that's it. It just had to rise from the dead in order to be number one. If it had never gone into CE, I think it would have been number one this entire time. It's just government contracts, working with the government, military contracts, all that. War, unfortunately, it brings death, but it also brings a lot of money to a lot of investors and to companies. That's unfortunate, but a lot of potential here. Like, I'm trying not to sound so awful, but man, if there's, more wars, oh boy, someone's going to benefit, and it's definitely, Cybl. So, all right, guys, that's it for the video. This was longer than I expected, but I guess that's what happens when you look at everything from share structure to numbers to a PR strategy. All right, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I will see you guys in the next one.